How do? Right then, today's job is to replace the broken spring, which is that bit there, which, just in case you didn't notice. So, yeah. Right, well this bit is actually looking a bit gnarly, so I'm going to have to make a new one of these. I could have just cut it off and welded it on, but the holes are a bit worn. So what I'm going to do is I've got some thicker steel in a safe place somewhere, which I'll dig out. I'll drill some new holes in which actually fit the bolt, weld them on. I don't know what they do, if anything, but I might find if I undo it. But yeah, so I've got somewhere, there it is, in the extensive collection of leaf springs, if I can get it on one-handed. So there you go. So the curve isn't quite the same. I don't know if that's going to make much of a difference. Yeah, it's only one way to find out. And thickness wise, width, tiny bit different, but even if this one isn't perfect, it's going to be a damn sight better than that one. So right, let's make a start on that end, dig out the bit of metal to make a new one of them, and then we'll see what works and what doesn't, and all of that. Right then, got that end straightened out, so that's cooling off at the minute. I'll get that cut to size eventually. So I've gotten a bit of that cut, which is thicker than that. Now the biggest drill bit I've got is that one, which isn't big enough. So what I'll have to do is just get a smaller hole done, and then just stick it in the forge, and I've got bigger punches somewhere, and I'll just punch the hole out, and then that'll do that. I would rather have too much metal than not enough, so I'll square that up. So I might put it like that, rather than just sitting on the flat bit, and just see if I can get extra weld there, extra weld, just generally more weldiness. I'm not going to taper it in, because again I would rather have too much metal than not enough, and just see if I can future proof it that bit more. So right, get some holes drilled, get them opened up, and then start sizing up to get it ready to weld on, because that should have cooled down enough by then. So right, crack on. Right, holes drilled. I'll bung them in the forge, and while that's heating up, I'll actually, yeah, that's actually quite hot as well. Yeah. So while they're heating up, I'll find me punch. Right then, check out my hot steamy holes. Giggity. So they fit nicely. So how hot? Actually, they're not bad. Actually, yeah, they're still warm. So the leaf spring should have cooled down enough, so I'll get that, and then I'll start sizing up, because I need to see how wide to make it for that. Alright, I'll measure that and then we'll have a size up and start welding. Right then, so I've got these done to shape, so they're gonna sit on like that. So if I leave the spring at its just original width, I had to cut the narrower bit off, put that there, the other one there, and I need 35mm gap for that. I've got to cut off more or less the same size. What I've got to do is straighten this bit, because this bit's going to be welded back on the top arm. But what I'm going to have to do is get some heat on and match the curves. I'm going to have to try and remember how to temper spring steel. I would imagine it's just the same as anything else, because I don't want it to be brittle and I don't want it to get too soft, so it needs to keep its springiness. So yeah, so I'll heat it up, quench it, temper it, and hope for the best. So right, straighten that, bend that, and then see what's what. Right then, I've got the curve more or less right. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing that up to, well, that's orange at the minute. What I'm going to have to do is go between doing that and then poking this end in to try and get uniform heat so I can quench it. Don't really need to bother about that bit, because that's a bit that's going to get welded on and it doesn't need to be springy. So I am not going to record this bit because, yeah, I need to pay attention. Right, I'll see you in a minute. Assuming I don't set fire to me beard and stuff. Right. Well, I did have the camera set up to work. Right, so that, yeah, you can see. Hopefully that won't fall over, and hopefully I won't blow myself up. Right, just a minute, I'm just going to heat the middle bit up again. bad for my lungs. The drips off. Yeah, that wasn't awkward at all. Right, I'll get an oil, well, the rag that will end up oily, just wipe some of that crap off. I'm assuming it got hot, giggity. I'll get my files on, see what it's like, and then see if I can temper it back, and then hopefully it won't break. Right, the file mostly skates off. I think what I might do is just let that baked on oil just sort of lightly burn off, and hopefully that'll do it. I'm just kind of guessing and using the force a bit there. So, but before I tweak it, I'm just going to weld my ends on and then see what it looks like. Right, I probably cannot show you this one-handed, although I might. Well, I've just burnt my thumb again, so time to get some new gloves. So if this goes down, yeah. Right, it's almost there, so I can get some G-clamps and stuff on. I can nip that up, but what I think I can do, if it's a little bit on the overly bendy side, I can adjust that screw a bit and hopefully that'll do it. Does that make sense? There's a camera pointing in the right way, so I need to get that clamped up, welded on. If it's still a bit too bendy, I can adjust that thread. There you go, I was pointing in the right direction this time. So, right, put that there a minute and try not to burn my fingers again. Right then, that was a faff. So the jaws weren't lining up, so they're alright now. But what I've had to do is just wedge that in, use my big spanner as a lever so I can clamp them in. So I think there is actually a little warp in the spring. I'm hoping if I can hold this in place and then get it welded, that'll all hold it together, and then, well, hopefully it'll be straight after that. I think, yeah, I think it wants to knock it off to the left just a tiny bit, and then ready for welding. Oh, right, that's what, 3 beads I think I've put on each side. That was ugly, so I'm not going to zoom in. Considering the position I had to stand in to actually get that done, yeah, even if it is not as pretty as it could be, I'm considering that a success. So it's on, and it moves. So I'm going to give it a little bit of time to cool down, and then I'm going to do a test bash. So right, I'll see you in a minute. Right then, cool down a bit. So here we go. There's motor works, that's nice. So there we go. And something's happening. Right. Is that too springy now, or is it not springy enough? Right, let's have a little think. Right, I've done a little tweak, so let's see how this goes. Hey, it works. In fact, I think that's what I did. I tweaked that a bit. That's a little bit tighter now because I've got proper sized holes, and the spring didn't break, so I consider that a great success. Very nice. I like. Get in. Right. Just for that, I think I'm going to fire the forge up and have a bit faff on. Hehehe. Ta-da! There you go, quick 2-minute job. Instead of dragging that in and out, just welded an old spanner on after I bent it over. So I can now do that. Hehe. Right, packing in for the night so I can get back to some proper Master Mare stuff again tomorrow, assuming my spring doesn't break. Right, see you in a bit.